Good evening. The Ranter is back to go into yet another rambling diatribe of the news of the day. And, no. Um, so there was this little presidential debate thing that we just had a few hours ago. Um, kind of like the last one, and nothing like the last one. Kind of like the last one because there was an old man involved that is clearly in some form of decline, but the decline doesn't seem to be as much about the age and the wandering thoughts and the meandering and the looking away and the ravages of time that we see in front of us that shocked us the last time around. No. This decline is more of like an emotional stability decline. Yeah, and it was becoming more and more apparent. Well, some of us who would admit it to themselves have seen it coming throughout the various rallies of this particular person for the past few weeks and if not months. But now it's on full blast before all to see. I'm talking, of course, about the presidential debate between former President Donald Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris. I'm not going to go into much minutia on this. I don't know how long this is going to be of a video. But from my biased opinion, because I won't claim I'm unbiased about this because one of those people is an unqualified, disqualified piece of shit, and the other one is Vice President Harris. So, that said, in my honest, biased opinion, she handled him. She stomped him. She baited him. She led him around. She ran circles around him. Now, people that I see who are doing the reviews of this on the news medias and so forth and podcasters, some of them do temper what they saw in how they're saying that it wasn't a knockout. I'll go with that. That it wasn't a knockout. I'll also certainly go with the point that just because the debate went the way it went doesn't mean the election is over. People who have that thrill of hope, temper that down. Because no, this is not over. This is not over at all. This is a very good night. This is a telling night. This is a night that we will see people use, and use effectively, in the coming weeks, if not months, up until Election Day, to be the reminder of the comparison here. But this is not over. The election is not over. This is not a blowaway. However, it is a good night for Vice President Kamala Harris. There were a number of topics that came up, and credit to the moderators who was there to fact check, as opposed to the last presidential debate that there was some sort of agreement for them not to fact check at all, so Donald Trump could run at the mouth and lie and lie and lie and no one will stop him. Because that was an agreement, because I don't want people to fact check me. It's wrong. It's wrong. But that happened tonight. The debates that covered the border, that covered policy, that covered reproductive rights, that covered foreign affairs concerning not only Israel and Gaza and the conflict there, but Russia and Ukraine. You saw this night and day difference. Kamala Harris came out, and every question that was asked, she had an answer. She had a definitive, declarative answer. She explained to you her point of view. She explained to you the policy ideas that she was going to have, and what she wanted to go moving forward. And if and when she becomes president, and what she wants to do for the people, not for her, which was another contrast. Trump, on the other hand, had nothing to do with policy. It was all about me, and how wonderful I am, and how they destroyed the country. They destroyed it all. They destroyed the economy. They destroyed our border. We're not going to have a country anymore. Minneapolis burnt down. I have never been to Minnesota. We'll throw that little truth nugget out there. But does Minneapolis, Minnesota still exist? Is it burnt completely to the ground? Is there nothing but ash? Because I understand that things were animated during the protests / riots of what happened to George Floyd. But did the entire city burn down? If there was any fires, was it all over the place? Was it the entire city just went up? That's it? Because I'm getting a little tired of this very over-the-top melodrama, gloom and doom narratives that Trump throws out there, and he threw some plenty of ones afterwards and throughout this entire debate. Were there any strong points that Trump made? I'm sure Trump supporters can pick something out, or, squint to pick something out that he said, maybe something stray that they will hitch their star to. But every time I saw him speaking, I saw her responding. And the majority of the time, she was smiling. She was holding back a chuckle. She actually laughed in his face when he brought up that Springfield, Ohio bullshit about Haitian migrants that just come in destroying the city. They're eating the dogs and cats. That got debunked. That shit was flying around in the social group Middle America that I admin in. That was thrown around like Trump supporters, a certain Trump supporter who throws out memes because that's his way of intellectually debating, and how he throws out memes and then he pushes out posts from satire sites, which is satire, that says it itself on there, on his posting, that this is not real, this is satire. Nonetheless, he posted as if it was real, that it was a serious, factual post. So, that's full of shit. But he was pushing this Springfield, Ohio migrant thing too. And it didn't matter how many times it got debunked, because many of the members of the group debunked it with sources from news sites, as opposed to him getting this off of somebody from X, and then his response to anyone debunking is putting an AI picture of Kamala Harris next to two black guys, which I'm assuming they're supposed to be Haitians, and they're all wanting to eat dogs or something. That's the level of engagement we have here. But that got all debunked. And what's funny about that is I posted an NPR article about that like a day or so earlier about it, and I found an article again that J.D. Vance pretty much up and admitted that what he was pushing in terms of this Springfield, Ohio thing about migrants eating pets, that may not be true, but let's keep running it anyway. Admitting that it wasn't true. But keep doing it, because someone will believe it. The same thing as this bullshitter that pushes satire, trying to say it's true, because maybe somebody isn't paying attention and they'll go, oh wow, that found it on the internet, that must be true, right? But when Trump brought that up, Kamala Harris laughed in his face. It was, oh my God, I can't believe he did it. She was baiting him throughout the debate. Baiting debate. Triggering him on crowd size. Triggering him on what he was saying and doing in January 6th. Triggering him on reproductive rights. Triggering him on pretty much every point. Where Kamala Harris, as rehearsed as she was, looked poised. She commanded the room. She knew what she was talking about. Trump, throughout the course of the night, was getting more and more upset, more and more flustered. He was raising his voice. He was yelling. And by the end of the night, as somebody who's kind of a historian, I happened to notice a little bit of that Nixon flop sweat. Just about down here. That was coming off of him. She knew how to push the narrative in whatever policy that she was going. She knew how to articulate, if it comes with something technical, she knew how to articulate it, pacing it out with the time that she had in order to speak. So she didn't really talk over her time too much. In fact, no matter if they're going to say that the network was unfair to Trump compared to Kamala, let's end that shit right now, because he spoke 35 minutes over compared to Kamala Harris, who spoke about 23 when you put it all together. He was able to shout out and speak over the time that he had lapsed, and he just kept going, right? You know, they're supposed to mute the mics, but I guess that wasn't. I guess they were intimidated. Oh no, the old man is yelling. So she knew how to balance her time and to articulate the serious points in the policies that she wanted to get into. Small business owners, the $50,000 startup, that's going to be helpful. Child tax credit, that's going to be very helpful. She talked about, one of the things that she talked about that was serious, she was able to put it out there concisely and be able for people to understand what she's talking about. When it went to the reproductive rights, she put in the emotion. Now, and she made a great point in terms of you don't have to be betraying your faith or something you deeply believe in to also say that you do not want the government involved in how you make the decisions for yourself in terms of women. Donald Trump was a bit shaking on the reproductive rights because, they did point out how he was so proud of bringing down Roe. And then he said that everyone loved it when he brought down Roe. All the Republicans, all the Democrats, all the independents, everyone loved it when he brought down Roe. But then he was going to be for reproductive rights for women, because he also said that, which made people a little nervous on there. And how he was going to... how they talked about how he was going to vote, he would have pushed voting against the 6-week ban on abortion for people getting abortion from after 6 weeks, because he originally said that it was too soon. And then the next day he says, no, I will totally vote for it, because he brought up some thing from an ex-governor of West Virginia saying that they would abort a child up until the 9th month and even after birth, where the moderator had to once again fact check him. They were fact checking him pretty good and very respectful, not being snarky about it. But when we rolled over and tried to say it again, they fact checked him again, and they fact checked it that no one in the 50 states are aborting children from 9 months, and certainly not after birth. I mean, for those who want to hunt that down and find it, if it does happen, it's not an official thing. It's not an official stance. But Vice President Harris She brought the emotion of what the effects of the decision that brought down Roe. She brought it up into the point of the woman that was carrying a child, that up to the point that miscarried. But she couldn't get healthcare services for fear that the doctors fear that that might be construed as something that would take them to jail for. So she would be bleeding out in her car without life-saving operations in order to remove the already dead child. Or she brought up the teenagers that were raped, and why would they have to carry their babies to term after being raped, after incestuously raped? That under Trump you still have to do it. She brought out emotion about a 12-year-old example, a 12-year-old young girl's example, and you see the split screen. You see the split screen of the two, right? Well, she is speaking not only to the audience, she's speaking to him. And he is completely, emotionlessly stone-faced. While a minute ago he was talking about his version of facts concerning his stance on reproductive rights, where he couldn't admit that he would veto or not veto a national abortion ban, like J.D. Vance says, where J.D. Vance says that he would veto it, and Trump said, I didn't talk to J.D. about it. Throw him under the bus. But yeah, he was stone-faced. He could not give a shit, because it's not about him. And pretty much any one of these topics will always go back to that. If they're talking about him, even positive or negatively, he reacts. He emotionally reacts. He responds. But when it's talking about somebody else, stone-faced. He doesn't give a shit. He's just waiting for his time to talk about something else. And of course he wanted to talk about the border. And in almost every topic, it always seems to come back to the border. For the millions of people that crossed over, that are destroying this country, it's destroying the fabric of this country. But Kamala Harris did pull out the kryptonite for that, because that was going to be one of these major issues that would be a struggle with her. That is something that we can acknowledge and recognize that is a bitter pill to try to swallow for Kamala Harris, and in dealing with Kamala Harris and the Biden administration and how they were handling the border, because they were handling the border just as good as Trump was, which was not good at all. But she could have pointed to the facts that for it to be in such an open border as they're claiming it is, how the Biden administration have had detained and arrested more people at the border, that confiscated and caught the trade of fentanyl into the country through the border that they caught. Of course, the answer to that is, oh, they caught them, but what about the other ones they didn't caught? We don't know about how many caught. If you caught more people at the border trying to cross the border and detained them and arrested them and threw them back more than Trump, then that should be the statement. That should be the acknowledgement that no, the border is not open. And as much as we talk about the border crossings, the fact and the matter is that the border crossings has fallen to the point of when Biden first took office. Should have been low all this time? Absolutely. But to not acknowledge the change, that the high went to low, is being disingenuous and dishonest and being very political. And the kryptonite that she pulled out is that there was a bipartisan bill. There was a bipartisan bill wrote by James Lanford, who is one of the most conservative of the Senate Republicans, who offered this. This is a bipartisan compromise bill that favored Republican policies on the border, that would have added to more border guards and stringent rules concerning concerning migrants, and a cap that would automatically trigger a border closing. She nails him to the wall with this. And it's something that I've said on my videos. Because Trump picked up the phone and told the Republicans to kill the bill. Kill their own bill. Because he didn't want to have Biden to have a win. He didn't want there to be a victory lap for Biden. So kill the bill. And that proves that he doesn't give a shit about the border. So long as it's... If he can use it, then he's all happy to talk about the border and all the people that are coming over, that they're all criminals. They emptied the insane asylums to come over. All the countries in the world are sending their criminals to the United States. See, we're at the point in his diatribe that is all gloom and doom. It is all Mad Max out there. You look outside your window tomorrow morning, since it's nighttime. You look out your window, and it's blue sky, a light breeze, beautiful outside. No, that's all an illusion. It's a wasteland out there in Trump's imagination, in what he's trying to push Trump supporters to believe. It is a wasteland of nothing but broken buildings and burning cars and roving bands of migrants just out there going after your wives and your daughters and your sisters. Because yes, let's not forget that once it became Kamala Harris that took the baton from Joe Biden in the relay race for the presidency, then the rhetoric from Trump world and some of his gerbil sycophants was to not only talk about the border and the evil migrants, but those dark skin pigmentation evil migrants that are going to be hunting for your wives and your daughters and your sisters. That if you elect Trump, you will save the female members of your family. And Kamala Harris will just serve them up on a silver platter like they were a dog or cat. He said this in the past few days. You vote for Kamala Harris, you won't have a country anymore. You vote for Kamala Harris, it will be World War III. If Jewish Americans vote for Kamala Harris, there will be no Israel. We will have a Great Depression. Every horrible act, from real world catastrophes to biblical plagues, will come down upon thee if you do not vote for Donald Trump. He told a crowd in one of these events that he was pushed on Fox News and says, "You have no choice. You have to vote for me." Yeah. And the problem is, for Trump, is that for all this prep time that he had, that they made a big deal of Tulsi Gabbard coming in to do prep work for Trump because she did so well against Kamala Harris and how she ended her presidential bid in 2020. Then Kamala Harris became vice president, and Tulsi Gabbard no longer was really politically relevant. Be that as it may. But they had her to help Trump be able to slay once and for all Kamala Harris. And none of that happened. So, where do they go from here? Here's a problem with Donald Trump. And I'm not going to be too ranter mad about this. This is just analysis. This is my opinion, and I'm keeping it in the middle here on my opinion again. For the purposes of Donald Trump, the problem that Trump has is that in order for him to secure a win, is that he needs to expand the support system that he has. Now, even though he won in 2016, he did not win the popular vote. He didn't win. But it was because he won the strategic places that got him the Electoral College. He did not expand his votership. Even though at that point, from 2016 to 2020, we just all had the deep impression that was put upon by Donald Trump and what he made the Republican Party do on behalf of Donald Trump. That the entire party, which means not only the politicians and the media pundits, but all the supporters and all the voters and all the people, the citizens who were Republicans, be it young Republicans, old Republicans, Reagan Republicans, that they were all en masse going to vote for Donald Trump regardless of what he'd said or did. Reality, though, that didn't happen because people, even on the Republican side, took notice of what he was doing as president and what it was saying about the Republican Party with him representing it. The second time he was in the election for 2020, Joe Biden won. And Joe Biden won big. The biggest. Now, Donald Trump said about his vote or what he was voted in 2020, that he was the largest vote count that any sitting president got in an election. That's true. Joe Biden's was larger. So, in order for him to get over this hump, this problem with the problem with the population of his supporters, hardcore supporters are always going to be there. He will always fill an event. People want to point these things out as that's like the end all and be all. Yes, he can fill a building. He can fill a field, a football field, right? He can fill a stadium, yes. But that is one strategically relatively small piece of real estate compared to the entire state around it. So it doesn't matter how many people you fill in an event, they will go home. You will go to another event. The vast majority of the people of whatever state you are going and visiting Donald Trump is not in that building. And yeah, your supporters will sound loud in a building. They'll sound loud, boisterous. They're all there. It's wonderful. Feeling good moment. This allows you to say whatever you want because they are entertained by you. They are entertained by the dancing bear. They came to be entertained, to hear the funny things that you're saying. Except for some of those who leave. That we do see leave. Which he denied that no, they never leave me. They never go to your events because they never leave me. I have the biggest crowds ever. One of the things that Kamala Harris triggered and was just, he was so pathetic about that. He takes no responsibility for January 6th. He did nothing wrong. That wasn't my responsibility. That was Nancy Pelosi. Nancy Pelosi. You know, a week or so ago, I said you want 10,000, 10,000 National Guard. She said no. It's all her. Yeah. So because that happened a couple of days ago, let's say for the sake of argument that was true. So because at the time, a couple of days earlier, a week or so earlier, she said no, and the reasoning for the no was because of what it looked like when the Black Lives Matter protest came to D.C., and that looked like an armed camp of the army, of people in uniform just guarding everything. That was going to be a bad look. But when they call you for help and you don't answer because you're too busy watching, watching on TV. I guess that doesn't matter. Right? He refuses to say if he did anything or didn't do anything that he regretted on January 6th. And Kamala Harris talks about her experience of actually being in the Capitol. And here's one of those things that you always have to keep in mind. Donald Trump was watching it on TV. Kamala Harris was in the Capitol when it was happening. Donald Trump talks about that nobody died other than a Trump supporter, Ashley Babbitt, who was shot and killed by an insane guard that should never have shot her while they were breaking into a door, breaking through the windows, so she was crawling in to be the first person to crawl through a place where he was guarding. He did his job. Oh, but she's the victim. Oh no, he was out of line. You know what? It is amazing to me how when they want to venerate Ashley Babbitt and her death as a saintly sacrifice, they don't want to talk about Roseanne Boyland. Roseanne Boyland. Roseanne Boyland was a Trump supporter. She was there at the Capitol with the other Trump supporters. She collapsed due to drug use. She was trampled by those Trump supporters so eager to break into the Capitol. They stomped her down when she was already down, and she died. Why aren't we hearing about the sacrifice of Roseanne Boyland, a loyal Trump supporter? Where's the empathy for Roseanne Boyland? Because she wasn't killed by a security guard of the Capitol? She's not a good political prop? Like Ashley Babbitt is? Is that the honest thing? I won't ask Donald Trump that because honesty? What's that? But all the Trump supporters, especially those who venerate Ashley Babbitt and her sacrifice and her death by gunshot wound from a security guard, you have nothing to say about Roseanne Boyland, a Trump supporter like you, who was killed. Either she died on her own or she was trampled to death while she was down, dying. That doesn't matter, because what the matter of the political narrative, because the narrative goes the other way, is that people were so eager, so amped up by the words of Donald Trump to break into the Capitol, they stomped her down while she was down. For that zeal of going after the enemies of Trump, to fight like hell. Fight like hell, or you won't have a country anymore. Trump's words. This is a good night for Vice President Kamala Harris. This was a terrible night for Donald Trump. Now, the thing about terrible nights, when Joe Biden lost his debate, which subsequently ended up ending his run for a second term, he came out and admitted that he had a horrible debate performance. He came out there, admitted to it. Will Donald Trump? The media, the whole media, both Republican-leaning, conservative-leaning media, and liberal-leaning media, all said Biden had a terrible performance. They all questioned his cognitive existence, questioned his age, questioned his ability to continue to perform as President of the United States, and how if he could even survive another 4 years as President, if he continued to run. Did report after report after report, asking every Democrat that they could, do they think that Joe Biden should drop out of the race? They did that. CNN did that. MSNBC did that. Of course, Fox News did that. Will they do that to Donald Trump? Given his performance against Kamala Harris? Will there be that? I think there's too many people who've been living sycophantically off of Donald Trump, who has turned their faces and their blinders away from all the bullshit that he does that is not strategically planned, that they're not policy points of view that he has, where he runs at the mouth incoherently and goes off on tangents in this childish bullshit. Versus against Kamala Harris, against Joe Biden, against anybody else. About stuff that entertains the crowd, because that's all he is for, entertaining the crowd. But nothing substantive, nothing policy driven. Stuff that he did, like the one thing that I found was interesting from him, that I said before, it was interesting about the tips. About cutting the taxes on tips. It was pointed out that, during the presidency, he wanted to enact the rule that allowed owners to withhold the tips from their workers. So if he continued wanting to do that, removing the tax on tips would mean that there'd be more money that the owners could get from their workers by taking and withholding their tips. Wow. With the momentum that Kamala Harris had from her getting into the race, going right into the DNC, and then after, there was a great high, great momentum that people were feeling. I was feeling it after, because, again, we who are on the liberal side had to admit the gloom and doom we were feeling because of what we saw with Joe Biden. That the horrific, almost abuse that it is to see Joe Biden in that state. That through no fault of him, that he was out there. And it breaks your heart when we saw him like that. So we were all gloom and doom at that. We thought at that point, unlike this debate, that we thought it was over. And Donald Trump rode that. He rode the assassination attempt. I don't know. I know some people want to say how traumatic it was for him. Yeah, he was so traumatized he was merchandising off of it. Oh, I'm so traumatized. I'm so scared. Let me commemorate the moment that someone almost killed me by making you buy shoes, making you buy T-shirts, make you buy, pieces of fabric off of my coat that I was wearing when I nearly died. I'm sorry if this disappoints anybody. And whatever part of him could be legitimately and honestly and earnestly traumatized by what happened to him, that didn't stop the greed machine inside of him. That just kept rolling and rolling and rolling, and he took the advantage of that assassination attempt. And he gained in that. So we vaulted that, venerated that, merchandised it for more money. And then went into his own RNC, and is not as vibrant and active as a DNC, but still riding high. And that high ended when Joe Biden passed the baton to Kamala Harris. I won't go into obviously I'm not going to go into the whole history from that point on, because we've already talked about that. This, I believe, was make or break for Donald Trump. What they had for people prepping him, like Tulsi Gabbard, Trump needed a rebound. And I don't think he got it. Make or break? This was a break. This breaks him. But again, that does not mean that Kamala Harris isn't going to be the next president of the United States. Not after this one debate performance tonight. No. No. The sugar high that we had from her getting into the race in the DNC, that was great. That was great feeling. And continuing on, how it's neck and neck in some of these places, that people are now saying that certain places that were shoo-ins for Donald Trump is now toss-ups. That's also great. That's a great feeling. We still feel the momentum. However, momentum is not enough. It is time that we got done with the vibes. We got done with the happiness. And get realistic. And get to work. Get to work. Kamala Harris knows this. She has to get to work. She posts on social media like the quotes from people like Nate Silver, who says that Donald Trump will win the election. She posts that because she is pushing the narrative that she's the underdog. And she's right to do it. To remind people that it is not blown out, that this is not a shoo-in, that this is still neck and neck, and she's still slightly behind. She's smart to do that. To remind people of what is at stake for those who do not want Donald Trump back in the White House. So they don't shirk the responsibilities come November 5th. If they want to do mail-in voting early, or afterwards at absentee ballots. Either way, make sure that they get to the polls or they sign what they need to sign and they send it out. Donald Trump needs to expand his base, what he has. As I said earlier, that his hardcore fans that comes in, goes to an event and is entertained by him, they can fill an event, an arena, a coliseum, anywhere. But that's not enough. He has never won a popular vote. He needs to expand beyond what he already guarantees in carrying. He can no longer be stupidly complacent. We're just assuming that all Republicans are going to vote for him. And it's like he says, anyone who is Jewish and he doesn't vote for him should be ashamed of themselves. Stuff like that. Yeah, that really expands the base. His performance tonight, my opinion, his performance tonight did nothing to expand his support system. Kamala Harris presented herself as knowledgeable of the policies that she was discussing, that she had a command of the room when she spoke. And he had nothing. He had nothing. He flailed like a 78-year-old child that needed a sippy cup and he needed a nap. But here's the thing, folks. Talking to my fellow Democratic, liberal, progressive people out there, moderates to hair flaming to multicolored hair, from cis hetero males and females to transgender to straight, gay, whomever, whatever skin pigmentation you are, whatever religious faith that you are, all these people in the plurality that dread the idea of Donald Trump becoming president again and what could happen to you. Don't rest on the laurels of tonight. Do not rest on the fact that Kamala Harris did a great job tonight. Because as many people as you are out there, Donald Trump has a sizable, vocal fan base that is also have their flames fanned by conservative media and conservative podcasters who do their own shows because they throw out the shackles of the media. So they're all the underground when they're not really. They're going to spin this Right round, baby, right round, like a record, baby. It's going to be amusing what they come up with in the next couple of days and how they're going to justify, how they're going to cope with what they saw when it comes to Donald Trump and Kamala Harris on the same stage and see the contrast between one and the other. But that does not mean you get to stay home on election day. That doesn't mean that when the absentee ballot comes, you don't fill it out. It does not mean that the opportunities that you have as American citizens to cast your vote, to put your name on the ballot, to be voted for Kamala Harris, that you don't need to because it's in the bag. It is not in the bag. And as I said in previous videos, we are still a ways away from Election Day. November 5th is... It is as of 1:43 in the morning. It is September 11th. Got that realization? That sort of that pause that I just had? And when it is September 11th. I'll leave you with this since I've said plenty tonight, but I'll leave you with this. I had hoped in my previous videos, or the other statements that I made outside of me doing these videos, that the contrast would be made. Kamala Harris versus Donald Trump. I think she made the contrast. I think she stuck that landing. I will agree to people that this wasn't a knockout, but the contrast was made. Kamala Harris versus Donald Trump. A woman that grew up middle class in circumstances that some of us can relate to. Donald Trump, born with a silver spoon in his mouth, was given $400 million to make something of himself. And through savvy and idiot savant level self-promotion and knowing how to do perception as reality, did make something of himself. At the expense of all the businesses he tried and failed and the 6 bankruptcies, but he did. He's entertaining. He knows how to manipulate the media from television on up. Kamala Harris stands with the working class. She literally stand on the line when it came to a strike. Donald Trump stands with the owners, with the CEOs, like him, who is eager not to pay for people doing services for him. Was rather proud of not paying people and firing people. When he did his interview with Elon Musk, he praised him in how he fired those that were on strike. Kamala Harris is a prosecutor. As a prosecutor, DA, Attorney General. Donald Trump is a 34-count convicted felon. Donald Trump was found liable for sexual assault. There's your contrast. The ranter rants because the urge to rant is always rising. It's not done yet. But let's make that ending the best ending that we have not seen in more than 4 years.